The UFC is a company that evolves around the mixed martial arts sport. When it began in 1993, it was started by Robert Meyerowitz and the Sophomore Entertainment Group. Art Davie, Rory Gracie, and many other fighters also helped to guide the first fight. During the early years of the UFC, there were very few rules that were in place. In an article by Cliff Montgomery, the UFC states that this was to allow fighters of many disciplines to compete fairly and freely without inhibiting any particular style. This initial format existed to encourage competition, not injury. When the UFC started, it was not taken as a legitimate sport. With only the few rules that were in place, which included no biting, fish hooking an opponent's face, eye gouging, or throat strikes, many people believed it was simply too heinous and more of a spectacle than a sport. The first UFC event, UFC 1 The Beginning, which aired on November 12, 1993, in the infamous Octagon. Instead of a ring, the fights took place in an 8-sided cage. There were limitless 5-minute rounds that lasted until someone either tapped out or until they were knocked out. During UFC 2, which aired on March 11, 1994, the time limits were removed, which caused the cable company to have to refund a lot of customers their payments. The fights ran over the allotted time slots on the pay-per-view channels, and many fights were cut off, and the customers did not get to see them. So for UFC 3, to solve that problem, the time limits were re-established. During all these fights, there were no judges or scoring systems in place until UFC 7 on December 16, 1995. This UFC kept this setup for the fights and is now used even today. There are now commission-mandated rules in place for mixed martial arts events that include commission-approved gloves, mandatory drug testing, no headbutting or kicking to a downed opponent, no knees to the head of a downed opponent, no strikes to the spine or the back of the head, and no throat or groin strikes. The Sophomore Entertainment Group remained in control of the company until the year 2000. According to Forbes magazine that year, a corporation named Zuffa purchased the company for a mere $2 million. Zuffa is owned by Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta. With Dana White, a high school classmate, being president of the UFC, it has grown into a multi-million-dollar company. Since Zuffa has taken over control of the company, it has also been taken to cable. It is no longer strictly a pay-per-view event. While the main fights remain on pay-per-view, there are also spin-offs on Spike TV. The UFC has now started being broadcasted on Spike TV on cable and also satellite television. This began in the year of 2005, when a reality show started. The show was titled The Ultimate Fighter, which features fighters trying to win a cash prize and also a chance to fight in the UFC. With Forrest Griffin winning the light heavyweight division and Diego Sanchez winning the middleweight division, the UFC has been exposed to the general population and has exploded in popularity. According to the UFC.com website, the reality show has delivered top ratings in the male 18 to 34 demographics for the Spike TV channel. The current season of The Ultimate Fighter, Season 8, is currently being aired on Spike TV. Mixed martial arts not only dominates in the male 18 to 34 age group, it is also starting to involve children as young as 6 years old. There are not only mixed martial art classes, there are also mixed martial arts fights among children, which have some critics wondering how safe the sport is. Since the Ultimate Fighting Championship started, there have been 90 events that have aired. The company has 275 fighters, and they each make approximately $100,000 a year for 3 to 4 fights in a year, with the superstars and the title holders making in the millions. The Zuffa Corporation has purchased other companies, such as the World Fighting Alliance, Pride Fighting Championships, and the World Extreme Cage Fighting to turn the UFC into a world-dominating company. The UFC doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, and the Fertitta brothers and Dana White see the mixed martial arts business turning into a $1 billion a year business within the next 5 years.